Dear soul, I'm so glad you're here today, and I want you to know that this message is meant for you. No coincidence, no accident. Today is a moment destined for your ears, for your heart, and for your soul. There's something incredibly important I must share with you, something that will change everything you've been wondering about your soulmate, about the love that you so deeply desire to understand. I urge you, don't turn away now. What I'm about to reveal to you is not only important, but crucial. If you leave before hearing it all, you may miss out on the answers that will finally make sense of everything. The truth is, you've been seeking clarity, and today, the answers are closer than you think. So listen closely. Stay with me until the very end, because everything I'm about to share will unlock a part of your heart that you've been longing for. And don't forget, if you feel the truth in your heart, leave a comment saying, Amen. That's a powerful declaration, a sign that you are ready for what is to come. Trust me, you won't want to miss a single word of this. The path ahead will be revealed to you, and I promise you, it will lead to everything you've been waiting for. There are nights that feel different, almost as if the universe itself is preparing to reveal something to you. This night, however, was not like any other. It seemed ordinary at first, but something shifted, something inexplicable that you felt even before you could fully understand what was happening. As the night unfolded, there was a powerful presence beside him, unseen yet undeniable, the kind of presence that makes your soul stir, your heart race, and your mind search for answers. It was as though the very air around him changed, subtle yet profound, guiding him to a place of deep understanding. The truth is, the angels were there, watching over him, whispering in the silence, sending messages that were meant to touch his heart in ways that would alter everything. You see, the world of dreams and the spiritual realm work in ways we don't always comprehend, and that night, the realms were aligned. While he rested, his soul was being gently awakened, prepared to receive something he had not expected. Have you ever wondered why some nights feel different? Why you wake up with an inexplicable sense that something significant has occurred, even if you can't quite grasp it? It is in moments like these that the divine touches us, offering glimpses into the future, into truths that are yet to be fully realized. That night was one of those moments for him, and it changed everything. The presence beside him wasn't just a figment of his imagination or a fleeting dream. It was something far more real. There were no voices, no signs that could be seen by anyone else. But in his heart, he felt it. There was a force with him, guiding him, helping him to understand the feelings he had long kept buried. And while he slept, that force began to work on him, gently coaxing out thoughts, emotions, and realizations he had never fully acknowledged before. It was as if the angels themselves were leading him into a place of deep clarity. He didn't know what it was at first. Perhaps it was the weight of the world lifting off his shoulders, or the warmth of something greater surrounding him. But one thing was certain. The presence beside him had a message. The angels had been sending him signs throughout the night, soft whispers of reassurance, small gestures of comfort that were meant to prepare him for what was about to unfold. Have you ever felt that sensation in the quiet of the night, as if something or someone was reaching out to you, trying to get your attention? It's the divine at work, making sure that you are ready when the moment arrives. The presence was not of this world, not of the physical realm, yet it felt so tangible, so incredibly close. And in that closeness, in that moment of stillness, something shifted within him. It was more than just a dream. It was a sacred moment of transformation. He was being led, not by force, but by the softest touch of divine guidance. And when he awoke, there was a knowing in him that could not be denied. He couldn't explain it logically. He couldn't find the words to express it. But deep within, he knew something had changed. He had been touched by something greater than himself, and he couldn't ignore it. What's even more amazing is that he had no idea how this moment would unfold, no way of knowing how this night would shape his future. But the truth was clear. His heart had been opened in a way that could no longer be ignored. The signs were now visible, and they had a direction. He could no longer deny that his life was being guided toward something, toward someone. And what he didn't realize was that this night would mark the beginning of a journey he had been waiting for, even if he hadn't known it before. The presence that stayed by his side that night wasn't just there to comfort him. It was there to prepare him for the clarity he needed. The angels were helping him, making sure that when he woke up, he would no longer be the same person. And when the morning light came, the world seemed just a little bit brighter, a little bit clearer. His heart was heavier with realization, but it was a good kind of weight, the kind that comes with knowing your life is about to change in the most beautiful way. It is in these sacred moments that everything starts to align. The universe begins to work in harmony with your soul, and when you least expect it, everything shifts. The night he spent in the presence of something divine was not an isolated experience. It was the first of many signs that would lead him to you. It was the start of a journey that would finally make sense of the feelings he had for you, the deep connection that had been there all along, but hadn't yet fully surfaced. This was the night when everything started to come together. The angels had planted the seed, and now it was up to him to let it grow. Have you ever had a night like that? A night where everything feels like it's just falling into place, even though you don't quite know why? Those are the moments that we are guided through. Those are the times when the universe is pushing us toward our true path. That night was the beginning of his path leading straight to you, and as he lay there, unaware of the transformation taking place within him, the angels were quietly doing their work. They were there to ensure that this love, this connection, would be revealed at the perfect time, in the perfect way. What he didn't know then, but what he would soon come to realize, was that everything he had been waiting for was already happening. The signs were already in place, the steps had already been taken, and the journey was well underway. All he had to do was follow the signs and trust in the guidance that was being provided to him. And now, as he begins to understand what happened that night, the clarity will continue to grow, leading him closer to the love he is meant to find. And so, as you listen to this, you too are being guided. The angels have been working in the background of your life, just as they were in his, preparing you for the love that is destined for you. This night was not just important for him, it was important for you too. It was the beginning of a new chapter in both of your lives. And now, you will begin to see the signs, feel the shifts, and know that this journey is meant to bring you closer to the love that awaits you. And before we continue with this very special message, I invite you to support this space of connection. Become a member of the channel, and if you feel this message is touching your heart, don't forget to click on thanks below the video. This helps us continue bringing messages full of love and hope like this one. Now, let's move on to what matters most. When he woke up that morning, the weight of the night still lingered with him. It wasn't the kind of weight that burdens the soul, but rather, it was the kind that fills your heart with purpose and clarity. A feeling of transformation, like an invisible force had touched his very essence. Something had shifted so deeply inside him, he couldn't deny it, no matter how much he tried to rationalize the experience. There was no denying the profound impact the night had left on him. It was as though a veil had been lifted, and he could now see things with a clarity he had never known before. His mind was clearer, his heart open, and the sense of connection to something greater than himself was undeniable. He felt like he had just awakened from a long, confused slumber, and now everything was coming into focus. Have you ever had that feeling? A moment when everything shifts, and for the first time, you understand things in a way that you couldn't before? It's the feeling that something has changed permanently, that your perspective on life has evolved, and you cannot go back to who you were before. That was exactly how he felt in that moment. It was as if the universe had finally aligned, and he was now awake to a truth he had been blind to for so long. The feeling was so real, so visceral, that he couldn't ignore it. The transformation that had begun the previous night had now taken full form, and he was left with a profound sense of peace, yet a deep desire for answers. As he sat there, reflecting on the night's experience, one thing became undeniable. He was no longer the same person. His heart was full, but it wasn't full in the way that it had been before, with uncertainty and questions. No, this time, his heart was full of something else, something more powerful, something more profound. It was full of clarity. He could feel it deep within himself, almost as though his heart had been reset, and now he could see everything in a new light. The feelings that had once been clouded by doubt and confusion now burned brightly in his chest. The truth had been revealed to him, and it was undeniable, but the most powerful realization of all was that the presence he had felt beside him the night before had been there for a reason. It wasn't just a fleeting moment, or a simple dream. No, it was a message, one that was meant to awaken him, to guide him towards something far greater than he had ever imagined. He now knew, without a doubt, that this presence had been a sign, a confirmation that something profound was unfolding in his life, and that something was you. The clarity he had received was not just about his emotions, but about his entire life path, and how that path was now leading him toward you, toward the love that had always been there, waiting for him to see it. The question that had plagued him for so long, "What is my purpose? What am I meant to do?" was now answered. His purpose was simple, yet profound: to follow the signs that had been sent to him, to trust in the divine guidance that had been placed before him, and to step into the love that had been waiting for him all along. The impact of that night had been life-changing. It wasn't just a passing thought or a fleeting emotion. It was a deep transformation, one that he could feel in every fiber of his being. What he had been searching for all this time, he now understood. He had been seeking answers to questions he didn't even know he had. He had been searching for a connection, for something real, for someone who could help him understand the truth of his heart. And now, he had that connection. He had that clarity. The feelings he had for you had always been there, lingering beneath the surface. But now they were fully awakened, fully realized. He could no longer deny them, and he didn't want to. In fact, he was embracing them, with open arms and an open heart. He wasn't afraid anymore. The fear that had once held him back, fear of the unknown, fear of vulnerability, had dissipated. He was no longer afraid of what the future held, because he now knew that the future was already unfolding before him. The signs were clear, the path was set, and the love he had always been seeking was right in front of him. It wasn't just an idea anymore. It was a tangible, undeniable truth. You were the one. You had always been the one. The only question left was how long it would take for him to fully step into this truth, to fully embrace what had been shown to him so clearly. The change in him wasn't just emotional, it was spiritual. His soul had been awakened, and now it was connected to something far greater than himself. It was as if a deeper part of him had been unlocked, and now he could see the divine plan at work. It wasn't just about the love between the two of you, it was about the love that had always existed between you, even before you met. It was a love that transcended time, a love that had been waiting for the right moment to be fully realized. And that moment had come. As he sat there, still absorbing the gravity of what had just happened, he realized that the answers he had been seeking had always been inside of him. The transformation he was experiencing was not something that was happening to him. It was something that had always been a part of him. He just needed to awaken to it, to allow it to come to the surface. And now, as he awakened to this new reality, he knew that he was ready to embrace this love, ready to step into the future that had been laid out before him, and ready to welcome you into his life as the one he had always been meant to find. And as he sat there looking out into the future, he felt a sense of peace settle over him. It was a peace that comes from knowing that you are on the right path, that you are exactly where you need to be, and that everything is unfolding exactly as it should. He was no longer searching for answers because he had found them. The transformation had been profound, and it had left him with a heart that was full, a mind that was clear, and a soul that was at peace. And now, the only thing left to do was to embrace this love fully, to step into it without fear, and to let the future unfold in its perfect divine timing. As the days passed, the powerful transformation that had begun that night continued to unfold within him. What started as a fleeting sensation, a deep sense of something shifting in his soul, had now solidified into a singular, undeniable truth. There was a fixed thought in his mind that wouldn't leave, no matter how hard he tried to distract himself. It was there when he woke up, when he went about his day, and when he lay down to sleep at night. The thought was clear and unshakable. You, in a way he couldn't have imagined just days before. He began to realize that you had become the center of his thoughts, the focal point of his existence. It wasn't just that he was thinking about you constantly. No, it was deeper than that. His thoughts weren't fleeting or superficial. They were penetrating his very being, reaching deep into the core of who he was. Every time his mind wandered, there you were, standing in the center of his consciousness, your presence dominating his thoughts in ways that made it impossible to ignore. He had tried at first to push those thoughts aside, to reason with himself, and tell himself that he had more important things to focus on. But no matter how much he tried, those thoughts kept coming back, stronger and more persistent. He couldn't escape them. And in the silence of his own mind, he realized that he didn't want to. Have you ever experienced something like that? A thought that just won't leave, a feeling that invades your mind and doesn't let go, no matter how hard you try to shake it off? It's not just a passing thought. It's something that stays with you, that grows in intensity, that begins to define your reality. For him, that thought was you. In every quiet moment, in every corner of his life, there you were, your image, your essence, your energy. He couldn't avoid it any longer. He couldn't pretend that he didn't feel what he felt. He couldn't deny that you were the only one on his mind. The most powerful part of this realization was that it wasn't just about wanting you. It wasn't about a simple crush or an attraction that would fade over time. No, this was different. This was something far deeper, far more profound. His mind wasn't just focused on you because of how you looked or how you made him feel. It was something much more powerful than that. His soul had recognized something in you, a connection, a bond that went beyond the physical and into the spiritual. It was as if, in the depths of his being, he knew that you were meant to be a part of his life, that you were the missing piece he had been searching for, even though he hadn't known it until now. And now, as these thoughts continued to swirl within him, there was no denying it. He understood, finally, that you were the person he had been searching for all along. You were the one who had always been present in his life, even when he hadn't been able to see it. The more he thought about it, the more he realized that the connection between you two wasn't something that had started recently, or something that had been born out of chance. No, it was something that had always been there, hidden beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. And that moment was now. It was as though his heart and soul had been awakening to a truth that had always been there, and now everything was coming into focus. The thoughts that had once been scattered and unsure were now unified, clear, and resolute. His love for you wasn't just a passing emotion. It was a truth, one that he could no longer deny. He couldn't look away anymore. He couldn't run from it. Every time his heart beat, it was for you. Every thought he had was tied to you. And now, all that remained was to acknowledge it, to accept it, and to embrace it fully. The more he reflected on it, the clearer it became. He had been prepared for this moment his entire life. Every experience, every challenge, every twist of fate had led him to this point. He had been walking down a path without even knowing where it was taking him. And now, in this moment of realization, he could see the destination clearly. The path had always led to you. The love he had been searching for, the connection he had been longing for, was right in front of him. And as this truth settled into his heart, it became impossible to ignore. He wasn't confused anymore. He wasn't uncertain. He knew exactly who you were, and he knew exactly what you meant to him. And so, with this newfound clarity, he couldn't help but wonder, how did this all happen? How had he gone from uncertainty and confusion to this profound certainty? How had he gone from searching for answers to knowing that the answer was already here? He realized that this wasn't something that had happened overnight. It had been happening gradually, over time, in ways that were subtle at first, but that now were undeniable. The universe had been guiding him toward this realization all along, and the signs had been there all the time, hidden in plain sight. Have you ever felt that way? Like the universe has been whispering to you, guiding you toward something important, and then one day, everything clicks into place. It's as though all the pieces of the puzzle finally fall into place, and you can see the bigger picture. That's what had happened to him. The signs had been there all along, leading him to this truth. He had just needed to open his eyes, to stop resisting, to stop doubting. And now that he had accepted this truth, everything felt right. Everything felt as it should be. And so now he found himself at a crossroads. The next step was clear. He needed to embrace this truth, to let go of any remaining doubts or fears, and to step forward into the love that awaited him. There was no more time for hesitation. The thoughts that had once been swirling in his mind were now clear and focused, and he knew, deep down, that it was time to act on them. He could no longer deny the truth that had been revealed to him. The only thing left to do now was to follow the path that had been set before him, and to reach out to you, the one his heart and soul had always known was meant to be in his life. And as he took this first step, he knew that everything was aligned, everything was ready. The love he had been searching for, the love he had been waiting for, was now within his reach. The journey was far from over, but the path ahead was clear, and in that clarity, he found peace. As the days continued to unfold, he began to feel something incredible stirring inside him. The realization that had been building, growing, now found a place to settle in his heart. It wasn't just a fleeting thought or a passing emotion anymore. It was a deep, undeniable truth that seemed to shine brighter each passing moment. The clarity he had been seeking, the understanding he had been hoping for, was now coming into full view. In the quiet of his mind, where once there had been confusion and questions, now there was only certainty. It was as if the world around him had cleared, and for the first time in his life, he could see everything for what it truly was. What had begun as a mere inkling, a whisper in the night, had now grown into something solid, something real. It wasn't just a distant hope or a dream anymore. It was his reality. He could feel it deep within him, like a fire igniting in his soul, warming him from the inside out. The presence that had stayed with him, that had guided him, had not left him. It had only grown stronger, clearer, and now, as he sat with this truth, he realized that the path he had been walking for so long had been leading him to this moment all along. He had always known there was something special about the connection he shared with you, even if he hadn't been able to put it into words. There had always been an inexplicable pull, an undeniable force drawing him closer to you, a force that he couldn't escape, no matter how much he tried. But it wasn't until now, after everything he had experienced, that he fully understood what it meant. It was more than just attraction. It was more than just love. It was a connection so deep, so profound, that it transcended time and space. It was something that had always been there, buried within him, waiting to be awakened. And now, it was finally revealed. The truth that he had been searching for, that had been hiding in the depths of his soul, was now fully awake. He could no longer ignore it. He couldn't deny it, no matter how hard he tried. And in the quiet of his mind, where once there had been so much doubt, now there was only peace. The presence that had been beside him that night had been there for a reason. It had shown him the way, revealed the truth, and now that truth was his to claim. He had been awakened to the reality of who you were to him, and more importantly, to the reality of who he was to you. The more he reflected on it, the more it became clear. The connection between you two wasn't a coincidence. It wasn't some random meeting of two people brought together by chance. No, it was something much deeper, much more purposeful. The truth was that you had been meant to find each other all along. You had been written into each other's destiny from the very beginning. Every step he had taken in his life, every decision he had made, had brought him closer to you. And now, with the truth finally revealed, he could see it all so clearly. He had been walking this path all along, without even knowing where it was leading. And now that he was aware, everything made sense. What he had once believed was just a series of random events, mere coincidences, now seemed like a carefully orchestrated series of steps, guiding him toward you. Every moment had been a piece of the puzzle, leading him to this exact point in time. And as the truth washed over him, he realized that the love he had been searching for, the love he had longed for, had been with him all along, waiting for him to understand it. All the signs had been there, hidden in plain sight, waiting for him to open his eyes and see them for what they truly were. Now, as he reflected on everything that had happened, he knew that everything had been leading him to this moment. This was his truth, his reality, and he was ready to embrace it fully. But there was something more, something that went beyond just the love he felt for you. He began to realize that this connection, this truth, wasn't just about him and you. It was about something greater than both of you, something that was being revealed through the two of you. It was as though your union was part of a larger plan, part of a greater cosmic design. The love between you wasn't just personal, it was universal. It was the kind of love that transcended time, that connected souls across lifetimes. The truth he was awakening to wasn't just the love between two people. It was the love that existed between all souls, the love that connected everyone to everything. And through you, through this connection, he was beginning to understand that love was the most powerful force in the universe. What had once seemed like an isolated experience, a simple awakening of the heart, now seemed like something far more significant. The connection he shared with you was part of a larger story, part of a greater truth, that he was now beginning to understand. It was as if the universe itself was speaking to him, guiding him, helping him to see the larger picture. This wasn't just about him finding you. It was about both of you finding each other, not only for your own happiness, but for something greater, something more profound. It was about fulfilling a purpose that neither of you could have understood before, but that now seemed so clear. And as he sat with this newfound understanding, he realized that this truth was something he could never let go of. It was something that would shape his life forever. Now that the truth had been revealed, he knew that the journey wasn't over. In fact, it had just begun. There was still so much more to discover, so much more to understand, so much more to experience together. The path ahead was clear, and he was ready to walk it, not just with you, but with the knowledge that everything was unfolding exactly as it should. The love between you was not just a chance meeting. It was part of a greater plan, one that was destined to change both of your lives forever. And as the truth continued to settle into his soul, he knew that he was no longer the same person he had been before. He had been awakened to something deeper, something far greater than himself. And now, he was ready to step into it fully, to embrace the love that had always been there, waiting for him to realize it. As he stood on the threshold of this new understanding, he knew that the truth had set him free. And now, the only thing left to do was to embrace it, to live it, and to share it with you, the one who had always been there, waiting to walk beside him on this incredible journey. As the days turned into weeks, something remarkable continued to unfold within him. The clarity he had discovered, the truth that had revealed itself, didn't fade. It only grew stronger, more vibrant, as if a deep inner knowing had finally anchored itself in his heart. And in that steady growth, something shifted within him, something undeniable. As he went through his daily life, there was always one thought that kept rising to the surface, no matter what he did, no matter where he was. It wasn't just a fleeting moment or a passing idea. It was the most constant and persistent thought he had ever experienced, one that consumed him completely. And that thought was you. He couldn't escape it. He didn't want to. In fact, the more time passed, the more that thought took over, until it became the only thought that mattered. No matter what happened, no matter the distractions that came his way, it was always you. You were the one who filled his thoughts, the one who occupied his heart. And as this truth settled deeper into his soul, he realized that this wasn't just about attraction or infatuation. It wasn't simply a matter of longing or desire. No, it was something more profound, more spiritual. You had become his constant, the one thing he couldn't stop thinking about, and the one thing that, above all else, felt right. He started to notice the way his heart raced when your name crossed his mind, or how his thoughts shifted toward you even in the most mundane moments. It wasn't just that he was thinking about you more often. It was that you were becoming part of his essence. He had never experienced anything like this before, a feeling so all-encompassing, so all-consuming, that there was no space for anything or anyone else. It was as if you had become a part of him, a part of his very being, and no matter how much he tried to turn his attention elsewhere, you remained in his thoughts, in his heart, in his soul. Have you ever felt that way about someone? A love so powerful that it becomes the very air you breathe, the very essence of who you are. A connection so profound that it seeps into every part of your life, until there is no separation between you and that love. That's exactly what he was experiencing. You were not just a thought, not just someone he thought about occasionally. You were the one constant, the one thing that remained steady in his heart, the one thing that made him feel complete. And it wasn't just an emotional feeling. It was a spiritual awakening. As he sat with these thoughts, he began to understand the depth of this connection. He had always wondered what it would feel like to truly be in love, to have someone who consumed his thoughts and his heart in such a way that nothing else mattered. Now, he understood. It wasn't just about romantic love. It was about a deep spiritual bond, a connection that went beyond anything physical or material. You had become a part of his soul's journey, someone who had always been meant to be in his life, even if he hadn't realized it yet. And now that he had, there was no turning back. For so long, he had questioned what love really meant, unsure of what it truly was. He had experienced relationships. He had been in love before, but nothing had ever felt this real, this undeniable. And now, as he reflected on all that had happened, he realized that what he had with you was unlike anything he had ever known. It wasn't fleeting. It wasn't temporary. It wasn't conditional. This was something deeper, something everlasting. It was as if his soul had been searching for you all this time, and now that it had found you, it was finally complete. But what struck him most was that this wasn't just his feeling. This wasn't just something that was happening within him. No, this feeling, this connection, was mutual. He knew that you were feeling it too. How could you not? The bond between the two of you was undeniable, and as he thought about it, he realized that you had always been a part of him, in ways that he hadn't fully understood. Your souls had always been connected, even if you hadn't yet recognized it. The love that was now awakening in him was not a one-sided affair. It was a love that had always been there, waiting for both of you to recognize it, to embrace it, and in that moment, something shifted within him once again. He could no longer deny it. He had spent so much time questioning, doubting, wondering if what he felt was real. But now, with absolute clarity, he knew that it was real. What he felt for you wasn't just a passing emotion. It was something eternal, something that had been written in the stars, long before either of you were born. The connection between you wasn't just about this lifetime. It was about something much bigger, something that transcended time and space. It was about a love that had existed for eternity and would continue to exist, long after this life had passed. As these thoughts filled his mind, he began to feel a sense of peace, a sense of purpose that he had never experienced before. He wasn't lost anymore. He wasn't questioning the meaning of it all. He had found his truth. He had found his soulmate. And with that truth came a sense of certainty, a sense of knowing that the love between you was not something to be feared, not something to run from. It was something to be embraced, to be nurtured, to be celebrated. The world felt different now. The weight of uncertainty had been lifted, replaced by the freedom of knowing that he was walking the path that had always been meant for him. And as he thought about you, as he thought about the connection between you, he realized that you were the person who had been meant to walk this path with him all along. Everything else in his life had been leading him to this moment, to this realization. And now that he knew the truth, now that he understood the depth of the connection between you, nothing else mattered. The only thing that mattered was you. The only thing that mattered was the love that had always been there, waiting to be fully embraced. He knew, deep within his soul, that this love was meant to last. It wasn't fleeting. It wasn't temporary. It was eternal. And as he stood at the precipice of this new chapter in his life, he felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude, grateful for the clarity, grateful for the truth, grateful for you, and most of all, grateful for the love that had always been, and always would be, a part of his soul's journey. As the truth continued to settle deep within him, he began to realize that the time had come. The moment he had been waiting for, the Somana that had been quietly preparing itself in the background of his life, was now on the horizon. It wasn't something that could be ignored anymore, no matter how much he tried. The weight of the realization that you were meant to be in his life, that you were the one he had been searching for all this time, was not something that could be put off any longer. The universe had been preparing him, guiding him, and now it was time to take the next step. For so long, he had wandered through life uncertain, unsure of what he was meant to do, what his purpose was, and where his heart truly belonged. But now, it was clear. His purpose was you. You were the person who had always been meant to walk beside him. The love he had been seeking, the connection he had been longing for, was already here, right in front of him. And as he reflected on everything that had brought him to this point, he realized that it was no coincidence. Every moment, every decision, every experience had led him to this exact moment, to this exact realization. And now that he was awake to the truth of who you were and the love between you, there was only one thing left to do: to step forward into the future that awaited him, a future that included you, a future that was filled with love and purpose. But stepping forward into this new reality wasn't as simple as it seemed. It wasn't just a matter of acknowledging the truth and moving forward. No, this was a big step, perhaps the biggest one he had ever taken. The love between you wasn't something to be taken lightly. It wasn't just a fleeting connection or a passing emotion. It was something deep, something sacred. And with that knowledge came a responsibility to honor it, to nurture it, and to ensure that it was allowed to grow into something lasting, something eternal. He knew that the future would be full of challenges, full of unknowns, but he was ready. He had been through enough to know that he could face anything as long as you were by his side. And he had come to understand that the challenges weren't something to be feared. They were opportunities for growth, opportunities to strengthen the bond between you, to deepen the connection that had already been made. He wasn't afraid anymore. The uncertainty that had once clouded his mind had been replaced by clarity, by a sense of purpose that he couldn't ignore. He knew that no matter what came, he was ready to face it, to walk through it with you. For the first time in his life, he didn't feel lost. He didn't feel like he was searching for something he couldn't find. The search was over. The love he had been looking for had found him, and now it was time to act on it. He couldn't keep waiting, couldn't keep hesitating. The time to act was now. The future was right in front of him, and he knew that the steps he was about to take would shape the rest of his life. He sat quietly, reflecting on what this next step would mean. It wasn't just about love. It was about everything that love represented. It was about the connection between two souls that had been destined to find each other. It was about trust, commitment, and the willingness to build something lasting, something real. He wasn't afraid of the work that it would take. He wasn't afraid of the risks involved. He was ready to invest everything he had into this love, into this future, with you. It wasn't just about following his heart. It was about following his soul, listening to the whispers of destiny that had been guiding him all along. And so, as he sat there, reflecting on the path ahead, he realized that the only way forward was to embrace this love fully, without reservation. He could no longer hold back. He had to take the leap, to trust that the universe had prepared the way, and that everything was aligning perfectly for this moment. He wasn't alone in this journey. He had you by his side, and together, they could face whatever came next. The path ahead might be uncertain, but the love they shared was anything but. It was steady, it was certain, and it was real. This was his moment. The moment when everything he had been waiting for, everything he had been seeking, was within his reach. It wasn't a matter of hoping for something to happen anymore. It wasn't about waiting for the perfect time. The perfect time was now. He knew that he had to move forward, to take the first step toward the future that had been written for him. And as he took a deep breath, preparing himself for what was to come, he felt a sense of peace settle over him. It was the peace that comes from knowing you are exactly where you are meant to be, doing exactly what you are meant to do. The love between you was no longer a dream, no longer a hope. It was a reality. And now it was time to live it, to embrace it, to build it, together. The future was waiting, and he was ready to take that first step, knowing that it would lead him exactly where he was meant to go. And as he took that step, he knew that it wasn't just a step forward. It was a step into the life he had always dreamed of, the life that had always been waiting for him, with you by his side. This was only the beginning of something beautiful, something real. And with that understanding, he felt his heart fill with gratitude, knowing that the love he had been searching for had finally found him. And with that, he was ready for whatever the future had in store. As the days passed, and the reality of the truth settled into his heart, he realized something even more profound. The future was not just something that would unfold on its own, but something that required him to take an active role in shaping it. He had spent so much time waiting, wondering if he was on the right path, if he was destined to find the love he had always longed for. But now, he understood that destiny wasn't something that simply happened to him. It was something he had the power to influence, to guide with his own choices. And the most important choice of all was that he was ready to embrace the love he had always been searching for, ready to step into the life that had been waiting for him all along. And that life, that love, was tied to you. It always had been. From the very first moment he met you, from the very first time he felt the stirrings in his soul, he had known that you were different, that this connection was different. But it wasn't until now, until he had been through this transformative journey, that he fully understood the depth of what you meant to him. You weren't just a fleeting thought, a temporary presence in his life. No, you were the person he had been waiting for, the person his heart and soul had been yearning for. And now that the truth had been revealed to him, he knew there was no going back. The love between you was real. It was powerful. It was destined. And it was something that would last forever, something that would grow and evolve as you both embraced it. He could feel the excitement in his chest, the sense of anticipation building within him as he thought about what was to come. The path was no longer unclear. It was illuminated, clear, and bright. The journey ahead would not always be easy. Nothing worthwhile ever is. But he was ready. You were ready. Together, you would face everything that came your way. But even as he felt the pull toward the future, the next steps in their journey, there was something crucial that he had come to understand. This moment, this revelation, wasn't just a one-time event. It wasn't something that would happen and then fade away, leaving him the same person he was before. No, this was a turning point. This was the beginning of a new chapter in both of your lives, and it would require more than just a shift in perspective. It would require action, commitment, and a deep willingness to step into the unknown with faith, trust, and love. He knew that the love he had for you wasn't something that could be taken for granted. It was something to be nurtured, to be protected, to be honored. It wasn't enough just to know that this connection was real. He had to prove it, show it through his actions, his words, his choices. He had to be willing to put in the effort, to build a foundation that would stand the test of time. This love wasn't something that would simply happen on its own. It was something that required work, dedication, and patience. But with you by his side, he knew that he was willing to do whatever it took. And so, as he thought about the next steps, the road ahead, he felt both a sense of excitement and a sense of deep peace. He was ready. He was ready to give everything he had to this love, to build a future with you, to create something beautiful together. He knew that there would be challenges, moments of doubt, moments of fear, but he also knew that nothing worth having comes without a little struggle. He wasn't afraid. The love between you was stronger than any obstacle, and he was willing to face anything with you. The future was calling, and he could feel it in every fiber of his being. He knew that it wouldn't always be easy. There would be moments of uncertainty, times when the road ahead would seem unclear, but he also knew that he was no longer walking it alone. You were there with him, and together, you could face anything. The bond between you wasn't just a fleeting connection. It was something eternal, something that would guide you both through every twist and turn of life. And now, as he sat in the quiet of his thoughts, he realized that the love between you was a gift, a precious gift that he had been given, and it was his to cherish, to hold, and to share. He couldn't take it for granted. He had to honor it, nurture it, and protect it. And the best way to do that was to continue walking this path together, hand in hand, trusting in the love that had brought you together in the first place. So, as you listen to this, know that the love you share is real. It is destined. It is eternal. And the future that awaits you both is brighter than anything you could have imagined. The road ahead may not always be easy, but it will be worth it. Because at the end of that road is something beautiful, something lasting. It is the love that has always been waiting for you both. Dear soul, if this video was meaningful to you, leave a thanks below this video as a gesture of gratitude for this revelation. This strengthens us to keep sharing messages of connection and faith. Now is the time to step forward, to embrace the love that has been given to you, and to trust in the journey that lies ahead. The angels have guided you here, and the path is clear. Don't hesitate. Embrace it with open arms, because the love you have for each other is everything you need, everything you've been waiting for. And now, the journey is yours to take, together, as you walk forward into the future that has already been written for you. You are ready, and so is the love that awaits you.